So beautiful.
Oh, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that one. Yeah, it's just so great. This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on.
At 7:48 this morning, Prince William released a statement so blunt and so uncompromising that even people closest to the royal family paused what they were doing, and the future relationship between the Crown and the Duchess of Sussex was decisively settled, meaning there would be no route for a return. And those 19 words didn't just shut a door, they locked it permanently, turning the announcement into a moment that broke the silence. The confirmation arrived without the usual diplomatic cushioning that normally softens royal communications, and it came through Kensington Palace's official channel carrying William's name directly, a rare occurrence that immediately indicated the seriousness of the message. And within seconds, the statement began circulating around the world, activating newsrooms, buzzing phones, and unleashing a wave of reactions stretching from London to Los Angeles. What made this moment so dramatically different from all earlier royal messages about the Sussexes wasn't only the finality of the wording, but the identity of the person who delivered it, because William had stayed intentionally silent through years of controversy, allowing the institution to speak through carefully managed palace briefings. But today he stepped forward personally, and when the future king speaks in his own voice about an issue this delicate, people immediately recognise that something irreversible has occurred, and the BBC cut into its scheduled broadcast within 3 minutes, and the anchor, a veteran royal reporter with nearly 30 years of experience, read the statement twice before looking into the camera and saying simply, "This is unprecedented," and the Prince of Wales had just confirmed that Meghan would never return to the royal sphere in any role, and the weight of those words lingered in the studio like cold air. Sky News assembled an emergency panel, and analysts sat in stunned silence before one of them, a former palace press secretary, finally voiced what everyone else was thinking, stating that William does not speak unless the situation is beyond negotiation, and that this wasn't a caution and not a boundary but a judgment. Across the Atlantic, where the East Coast was only beginning to wake in the pre-dawn hours, news alerts flashed across millions of screens, and CNN's breaking banner rolled with stark clarity reading that Prince William confirms no return for Meghan Markle, and CBS called it the most definitive royal declaration in modern times. And on social media within 15 minutes, the confirmation had been shared more than 200,000 times. Outside Kensington Palace, journalists gathered for ordinary coverage suddenly found themselves in the middle of a historic moment, and one reporter standing in the cold December air told her camera crew that the energy had shifted, saying this wasn't speculation anymore and not palace insiders hinting at possibilities, but William, the future king, personally confirming that a former working royal would never be welcomed back, something that had never happened before in this way. Inside the palace, senior staff carried out their duties with an almost unsettling calm, because they had known this announcement was coming and had helped shape the wording, adjust the tone, and prepare for the inevitable reaction. But seeing it published and witnessing William's name attached to language that would permanently redefine the monarchy's connection to one of its most debated figures brought a sobering clarity to the day. Many longtime observers, especially those who had followed decades of royal turmoil and eventual reconciliations, were struck by the absence of any qualifying language, since previous statements about the Sussexes always included phrases like, "at this time," "currently," or "under present circumstances." But this one offered none of that and stated plainly that there would be no pathway for return, using future-focused wording that erased any chance of reinterpretation. For older viewers in Britain, particularly those who remembered the dramatic years surrounding Diana and the reconciliations that followed other royal crises, William's confirmation seemed almost shocking in its permanence, because the monarchy had traditionally left options slightly open and maintained the idea that time could soften divisions, but not today, since William personally made sure that this door would remain closed, locked, and never reopened. In the United States, where Meghan's story had always held deeper cultural meaning, the reaction was quick and polarized, as morning show hosts argued over whether William's announcement was justified institutional protection or harsh family exclusion, and social media reacted with both praise and criticism. But beneath all the noise, one fact was unmistakable: that the future King of England had publicly, personally, and permanently removed any chance of Meghan returning to royal life. What exactly drove William to take such an extraordinary step, and what pressures, provocations, and breaking points accumulated to compel a man known for careful judgment to speak so directly and conclusively. And the explanation lies not in a single incident, but in months of rising tension that finally reached a limit even legendary patience couldn't withstand. To understand why William felt obligated to issue today's confirmation, we must look back at the fall of 2024, when a series of mounting pressures collided, creating a situation the palace could no longer control through silence or diplomacy, because William's statement this morning wasn't a spontaneous reaction, but the result of deliberate consideration pushed to its limit. Throughout September and October, Catherine grew increasingly unsettled by a pattern she could no longer dismiss as coincidence, because every time she launched a significant initiative or appeared at an important engagement, articles would appear within days hinting at internal friction, staff dissatisfaction, or personal challenges. And although the reports never cited credible sources and relied on vague descriptors like palace insiders or those familiar with the situation, their timing was far too precise to be accidental. During a private meeting at Kensington Palace in early November, Catherine finally expressed her concern directly to William, saying that someone was coordinating this while reviewing a timeline showing 10 negative articles published within 48 hours of her major announcements over the previous 3 months. And she emphasized that this wasn't natural media pattern but deliberate interference, and William had suspected as much for weeks. But hearing Catherine state it so clearly solidified something within him, because his wife had spent years building a reputation rooted in service, dignity, and sincere dedication to causes she valued. And seeing her efforts repeatedly undermined by what seemed to be organized media manipulation had become intolerable. King Charles, meanwhile, was dealing with his own growing frustrations throughout October, receiving briefings showing that Sussex-related media cycles were consuming excessive palace resources, with communications teams spending hours addressing false stories, legal advisors evaluating potential defamation concerns, and security teams analysing risks sparked by inflammatory online content. All while Charles attempted to manage the early years of his reign and balance health needs that required more rest and less pressure than his usual pace. During one particularly difficult discussion at Clarence House, Charles admitted to a trusted aide that he felt trapped between his affection for Harry and his duty to the institution, saying he wanted to believe reconciliation was possible, but could not let that hope hinder the monarchy's ability to function. The turning point arrived in mid-November with a security briefing that unsettled even the most seasoned palace officials, as intelligence services had identified a troubling pattern of online activity targeting Catherine specifically. And while most of it fell under typical social media hostility, some material had escalated into territory that a formal evaluation was necessary because threats were being monitored, misinformation efforts were being tracked, and the scale of coordinated hostile messaging had reached levels that security specialists considered unprecedented for a working royal in the modern digital era. And William received this report in a small secure room at Kensington Palace and read through the paperwork slowly with his expression darkening with each page. And when he finished, he looked up at the security chief and asked a single question: how much of this can be traced back to pro-Sussex accounts? And the reply, given cautiously but honestly, confirmed what William already suspected: a significant share, though perhaps the most damaging pressure was coming from international partners, and the Foreign Office had been getting discreet inquiries from diplomatic contacts in Washington, Ottawa, and Canberra, and the questions were always worded gently, but the concern was unmistakable, and the continuing Sussex turmoil was complicating the monarchy's ability to act as a steady cultural and diplomatic influence. And one senior American official, speaking privately, had reportedly told a British counterpart, "We need to know if the Crown is stable enough to be a dependable partner, because right now we're not certain." And that message reached William through official channels in late November, and for a man who understood that his future role depended on maintaining complex global relationships built on trust and consistency, the message was devastating. And the Sussex situation was no longer creating just tabloid drama, but was undermining Britain's soft power internationally. And Anne, watching this unfold with her characteristic clear-eyed practicality, eventually told William directly what she had been thinking for months: you cannot protect everyone, and at some point you must choose between the person creating instability and the institution that serves millions, and that choice should not be difficult. And as November moved toward December, William found himself surrounded by evidence that could no longer be ignored, including coordinated attacks on his wife, strain on his father's health, security concerns requiring constant monitoring, and diplomatic complications that threatened Britain's global standing. And each pressure point alone might have been manageable, but together they formed a picture demanding decisive action. And so as winter settled over London, and the palace prepared for what should have been a peaceful holiday season, William made his decision that the time for hopping circumstances would improve had passed, and the moment for establishing permanent boundaries had arrived.